This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to compare the two AT&T LTE True 4G phones. We've got the HTC Vivid here and the Samsung Galaxy S2 Skyrocket. Now, your decision's a lot easier versus Verizon folks who have a whole slew of LTE phones. AT&T just released two, their very first two right here, and they're both very good offerings. And rumor has it that the LG Nitro HD might be coming too with a 720p IPS display, but until that's a reality, we're looking at these two guys right here. The two phones have a lot in common. They both have 4.5-inch displays. They're both fairly large phones, therefore. You can see they're just about the same size. The HTC is a teeny bit thicker. It looks thicker than it is thanks to its kind of ungainly design, and we'll look at design in a minute. They both run on Qualcomm Snapdragon dual-core CPUs. The Samsung's a little bit faster clock speed, 1.5 gigahertz versus 1.2 on the HTC, but there's a big difference in benchmark numbers, and the Samsung is really wickedly faster, about 1,000 points faster on Quadrant, synthetic benchmark. When it comes to actual use, the Samsung also feels quicker. Not that the HTC Vivid feels slow, it's pretty responsive, and some of it may be that HTC Sense UI making things seem a little slower than they are, but it's not as zippy, really super fast as the Skyrocket is. Of course, they all have Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and a GPS built in, and they have 8-megapixel rear cameras, both very good cameras, and front video chat cameras. Now, the HTC only has a 1.3 megapixel front video chat camera. Samsung has a 2 megapixel, and you will see the difference if you're using video chat. Then again, the HTC Vivid is $50 cheaper on contract. It's $199 with a 2-year contract, and the Samsung is $249 with a contract. Both phones run Android OS 2.3 Gingerbread, and they're both promised upgrades to 4.0 Ice Cream Sandwich. Of course, the HTC runs HTC Sense software, and the Samsung runs TouchWiz software. And as to that, I know some of you really like TouchWiz, and some of you really like HTC Sense, and let that be a guiding light for your decision. If you're more of an HTC person or more of a Samsung decision, well, that makes it that much easier for you. I'm not going to say that one is better than the other. They're just plain different. HTC tends to do a lot of things that really improve usability, make some things really quick and easy to access, like your wireless radios, but Samsung's done a lot of the same thing without some of the heavier software customizations that can sometimes slow phones down like Sense does. Both of them have standard application drawers. HTC does something a little bit different here. You can view all, you can view your favorite, or you can view just things you've downloaded, and Samsung just shows them all to you one screen at a time with a sideways swipe rather than an up and down kind of swipe. Important thing to note about these guys is the display. I think you should be able to see even on camera that the Super AMOLED Plus display, which I know a lot of you love, it's super saturated, very high contrast, kind of more vivid than life colors, tends towards the blue. We're running the same obvious desktop background here, and you can see that the whites are turning blue on this. Something to keep in mind if you do like Super AMOLED, but that kind of bothers you, there's a handy little utility called Screen Adjuster that you can use. And I'm going to turn it on right now, and you can see if you raise the red some, you're going to get more of a neutral color. That will be at the expense of some of the vividness of Super AMOLED, though, so I haven't really cranked it enough to get rid of the blue completely, but you can play with that kind of thing. But out of the box, the Super LCD on the Vivid, more color accurate, also very sharp and very colorful. It's an aptly named phone. What's going for this also is a QHD display. It's a higher resolution display. It's 960 by 540 pixels, where you still get the 800 by 480 on Samsung Super AMOLED Plus. That's because right now, well, that's as high a resolution as they can fit in this size panel on Super AMOLED Plus. The good part is if you don't have good eyes, you can take a look at fonts are absolutely huge in the operating system. Look at the size of those things here. If you take a look compared to the HTC, quite a difference right here in size. So, in terms of reception, don't be fooled by the bars that you see right here. The thing is, we have only one LTE-capable SIM right now, and that's in the Galaxy Skyrocket. This one's just running a regular LTE, non-LTE SIM, rather. They both have really identical reception on HSBA Plus and on LTE. Either way, you're going to get the same number of bars, the same number of dB for signal, and they both do quite well. We're lucky enough to be in the Dallas area, which is one of AT&T's first markets. They have plenty of spectrum here and pretty solid service, so we've had them both behave quite well. No strangeness with it switching back and forth unexpectedly between network types. It pretty much stays locked on LTE most of the time. Now let's look at the physical design a little bit. Those of you who read my HTC Vivid review know I think that this is a kind of an ugly phone. It's pretty darn weird. You've got this kind of clipped off pyramid look here, gloss plastic, something that HTC never uses. Samsung used to love to use it. Gets dirty really quick, and with all the glossiness here, we have this matte metal back, which is kind of jarring. It's great always to have some metal, and HTC is good about using some high quality components, but it kind of doesn't fit with the gloss here, and it's half stippled and half smooth. Again, a little bit strange. From the front, it looks just like your average, everyday Android phone. It doesn't have that HTC unibody design, so it's not one of my favorites. It is a little bit heavier. It feels weighty in the hand, and some of you like that because it feels like a quality piece. And then again, some of you don't like a heavy phone in your pocket, and this one will be the heavier one. The Samsung, well, it's always going to be plastic. Samsung just loves plastic, but they did a nice job of kind of toning down the plasticiness here. There's a little bit of gloss. You have the faux metal plastic back here, but it's a nice looking phone. It looks like a Samsung. What can I say? It's your basic super slim slab of Android goodness. The back on this peels off, and very thin piece of plastic. And then you've got your SIM card slot here, and here's your micro SD card slot. No micro SD card is included with either phone, but that's pretty easy access. In fact, it's surprising you can even take the SIM out without removing the battery. On the Vivid, you press and slide, and the metal plate pops off. There's your SIM card, blocked by the battery. That's okay by me. And here's your micro SD card slot, also blocked by the battery. That's kind of a bummer. So that means if you want to insert or remove a card, you have to power down your phone. And while we're talking about batteries, this has a 1620 milliamp battery versus the 1850 back here. So you know who's going to run longer on a charge. When you're talking over 200 milliamps of difference, it's significant. You'll probably notice a couple of hours difference. In terms of calling, the Samsung Skyrocket has better call quality. Now, they're both pretty good. This is not a terrible phone, the Vivid, but the Samsung is louder through the earpiece, and it's also a bit clearer for both incoming and outgoing voice. You can see the different way they handle the dialer here. This is the absolutely huge number pad that you get on this, with your standard kind of Android access to log, contacts, and favorites. And this is HTC's customized dialer. It shows you who you've called most recently, assuming that you might want to call them again, and you have access to other call features as well. Both do Bluetooth headsets, they both do Bluetooth stereo, and they work with car kits. Both have excellent 8-megapixel cameras by American camera phone standards, and I would give the edge to the Samsung for video quality and give the edge for photo quality to the HTC. This has their illuminated backlit sensor and an f2.2 fast lens, 28mm wide viewing angle. It just takes very nice, sharp, pleasing colors that aren't over sharp, and a lot of improvement from HTC over the years. Samsung, they've always had a good camera phone, so can't say they've improved so much as they're maintaining their solid capabilities. You can see the user interface here. Both of them have little touch buttons for you to use for the shutter. You can move your focus point around on the Samsung and on the HTC, and you've got access to more settings by hitting the menu button. And they both have a lot of advanced stuff. You can choose from scenes and ISO resolution, widescreen or not. A whole lot of different scenes that are available here, macro mode, focusing mode, that kind of thing. The HTC has face detection, and on the Samsung we have pretty much the same large selection of scene modes. Exposure value, focus mode, you've got autofocus, macro, and face detection nested in here, with the HTC of autofocus on-off as your options, or face detection mode. And you've got effects, white balance, ISO. So they're both pretty good cameras. Now we've got the same 1080p high-profile movie trailer loaded on both, and you can see the difference in colors right away. The Samsung is brighter, the green is cooler as well, because it is just a cooler colored display. For video, it's really pretty nice. We've got them both set to maximum brightness, by the way. Try to hit play at the same time. You can see that they both actually play very fluidly. So they both play really well, and despite the high resolution on the Vivid, I would pick the Samsung Skyrocket for watching video myself. The speakers on these guys, the The Vivid doesn't get really loud, but it's pretty full and natural even if you crank it up to max volume, and the Samsung distorts if you crank it up to high volume. Through the wired headphones, they both sound pretty nice. Now how about for ebook reading? That's where the Vivid pulls ahead because of its more neutral colored screen and because of its higher resolution. Fonts look a little bit sharper. We're in Google Books here. We're going to take a look at the same book. And you can see just how sharp and fine, even though that's a smaller point size, it's really, really, really nice for reading on. The fonts are just nice and smooth. I'll bring it up in size a little bit to match, and you can see the difference there. I would definitely pick this guy for e-reading. And not to mention that without my turning that color correction utility on that I downloaded from the Android Market Screen Adjuster, if you want to look for that for yourself, this is really a blue background that you're reading on instead of a white background, or slightly, maybe pinkish on the Super LCD display, but that's very faint. Now in terms of web browsing, both have Adobe Flash, and they load pages equally as well. The Samsung Galaxy S2 Skyrocket gets the advantage again. SunSpider JavaScript test, it's much, much faster than the Vivid is, and you'll notice it in quicker page load times by a little bit. In terms of the resolution, again, you can see, look how big the URL bar is here because this is a lower resolution display, and it's also the way that Samsung handles the UI versus HTC. In terms of the fonts that are actually on screen, they're about equally as tiny without doing some zooming, and they both scroll responsively enough, but you can see the Samsung's actually a little bit more fluid going, just for doing something like scrolling. Pinch zooming is about the same. In terms of other specs, they both have a gig of RAM and 16 gigs of internal storage. Not all that's going to be available for your use because the system image is stored on that partition, and they both have micro SD card slots with no card included. The Skyrocket wins once again for having HSPA plus 21 megabits per second versus 14.4 on the Vivid. But that said, testing both using speedtest.net application, we saw about the same speeds, which in our area is about 6 megs down and about 1.4 megs for upload speeds. On LTE, they did equally as well, which is to say incredibly, insanely, blazingly fast right now because LTE network is new for AT&T. There aren't a lot of folks on it, but we've seen anywhere from 15 to 33 megabit per second download speeds and averaging about 10 megs up, which is just insane right now. You get the same AT&T applications on there whether you want them or not, including AT&T Navigator, Family Maps, Yellow Pages Mobile. Happily, you can remove some of those things like Yellow Pages Mobile and AT&T Family Maps if you don't want them. They both have AT&T TV. That's powered by Mobi TV. It's $10 a month for streaming TV shows and on-demand content as well. So they're both very nice high-end Android phones on AT&T, good phones to launch with. The Skyrocket would be my personal pick, but I understand if you like HTC better or that QHD display, that being higher resolution, particularly if you do a lot of reading. But we give the Skyrocket the nod for having better battery life, that really vivid Super AMOLED Plus display, and technically faster HSPA Plus network connection type. Looks are subjective, but I would say the Skyrocket is also the better looking phone, but that said, having not seen the Vivid in white, which might do wonders for its looks. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to visit our website to read full reviews of these phones, and don't forget to watch our video reviews of each of these phones, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.